Welcome to this explainer. Look, we have absolutely all been there, right? You finally sit down with a textbook, you read maybe 2 paragraphs, and suddenly this massive physical wave of sheer exhaustion just totally hits you. Well, today, we're figuring out exactly why that happens. Because as it turns out, there are real neurological, systemic, and behavioral reasons why studying literally feels like absolute torture compared to, say, scrolling on your phone or playing a game. So let's dive into this and figure out how we can radically fix our focus.
To help guide us through all this, meet Curio Kai. He's nervously, but super enthusiastically, welcoming us to Curio Eye for his very first explainer. It's a realm completely designed around the idea that true curiosity doesn't really care about specific subjects. It just wants to chase questions and seek out answers. And today, Curio is helping us chase down a pretty massive question about our very own brains.
So, here is the central mystery we're tackling today. Why is it that you can effortlessly binge-watch a show or play a video game for literally 10 straight hours without even breaking a sweat, but reading a single chapter of a textbook makes you want to pull your hair out? Why does time absolutely fly when we're staring at screens, but completely drag the second we look at an academic paper? I mean, it feels like a willpower issue, doesn't it? Like you just aren't disciplined enough. Well, honestly, you can scratch that idea entirely.
The actual research tells a completely different story. So let's get into the mystery of boredom itself and see how psychological design plays a huge role here.
Okay, the core of the problem is that we're dealing with 2 totally different psychological states. On one side, we have voluntary interest. Video games and social media are specifically engineered to trigger constant dopamine rewards. They give your brain these instant, intermittent little hits that keep you totally locked in. But on the other side, we have forced interest. Academic reading is incredibly difficult for human biology because it demands that you delay your gratification for weeks or even months just to finally get a grade. It almost never has those built-in entertainment hooks.
And this is compounding into a serious issue with our shrinking attention spans. These algorithms are actively changing our baseline expectations for stimulation.
Just take a look at this timeline based on researcher Gloria Mark's work over at UC Irvine. She spent nearly 2 decades measuring how people actually interact with screens. Back in 2004, the average person's sustained focus on a single screen was about 2.5 minutes. By 2012, as the digital landscape got way more crowded and algorithm-driven, that plummeted to just 75 seconds. Our ability to hold focus was literally cut in half in less than a decade. And today, it sits at a terrifying 47 seconds. These algorithms have fundamentally shifted exactly how often our brains expect a shiny new piece of information.
So the crucial point here is just how overstimulated we've become as a baseline. Get this, 30%. Eye tracking studies actually show that we spend 30% of our time looking at a second screen, usually our phones, even while we're watching a super engaging movie or TV show. We've totally conditioned ourselves to require constant, rapid-fire novelty.
So what happens when we take that chronically overstimulated brain and force it to look at a dry academic paper? Let's look at the biological reasons why our brains hate textbooks.
This brings us to a really crucial concept called cognitive load theory. Our human working memory has a strictly limited capacity. When you're rapidly switching between, say, 15-second videos, you massively increase the extraneous load on your brain. It is exactly like having 50 open browser tabs running all at the same time. This essentially crashes your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for focus and planning, and pushes it into a chronic dopamine deficit state. In that state, quiet, sustained attention isn't just boring, it actually becomes physically uncomfortable. Your brain throws a tantrum because it's completely starved of its expected chemical hit.
But wait, you might be wondering, why do we remember movies so easily then? That's due to neural coupling. When you hear a great story in a movie, your neurons are firing in the exact same patterns as the storyteller's brain. It releases dopamine and makes memory completely effortless. Textbooks, on the other hand, are usually pretty devoid of narrative. They don't engage that neural coupling. Instead, they force you to metabolically carve out completely new neural pathways from scratch. That drains your brain's battery super fast and leaves you feeling physically exhausted.
But look, we can't just blame biology for all of this. We also have to look at the systemic setup, because the historical flaws in our academic structures actively divorce learning from joy.
A lot of people think the long summer break is based on some old agrarian farming schedule. Actually, historians show that's a total myth. The modern school calendar was really just a late 19th century compromise so wealthy urban elites could escape the sweltering cities before air conditioning was invented. Let that sink in for a second. We are structuring 21st century learning around a 100-year-old response to summer heat, not around cognitive optimization.
Add in this old puritanical work ethic that prioritizes rigorous suffering over genuine intellectual curiosity, and you've got a system built entirely against how we actually learn.
Because the system is so flawed and our brains are so tired, we often fall into a dangerous behavioral trap looking for quick fixes. Let's explore the toxic motivation loop. You likely know exactly what this motivation addiction looks like. You start watching endless how-to-study reels. You're carefully color-coding brand new planners and organizing those nice pastel highlighters. Your brain actually tricks you. It gives you a dopamine hit just for planning to study. You get trapped in what's known as the inspiration loop of death. You consume so much aesthetic study content that by the time you finally open your own book, you're too mentally exhausted to write a single sentence. You've basically spent all your cognitive energy just preparing to do the work. If you're feeling a little guilty right now, I really want you to internalize this. This is not a failure of your personal willpower. Our environment has quite literally rewired our neural pathways to expect novelty every 15 seconds. When you sit down to study and you immediately feel that itch to check your phone, that is not weakness. That is a highly trained neural habit. So how on earth do we fix it? Well, it's not through more motivation videos, and it's definitely not better aesthetics. It's what we call the dopamine reset.
Now, the goal here isn't to magically make a dry textbook as exciting as a video game. That's impossible. The goal is to make studying the absolute most stimulating option available in the room. Here is the scientifically necessary 3-day dopamine reset. Day 1, panic. By removing digital distractions, your brain will absolutely scream for its usual stimulation. Day 2, agonizing boredom. Honestly, it's going to be painful. But day 3 is where the magic finally happens. Hippocampus healing. Without a phone to constantly distract you, your brain's default mode network reactivates. And suddenly, reading a textbook actually becomes a really appealing way to escape the quiet.
Okay, I get it. A full 3-day detox might be way too extreme for your schedule right now, but you can still build these intentional daily focus habits. Try 30 to 60-minute reset windows with your phone completely in another room. Out of sight, out of mind. Use the Pomodoro technique to chunk work into digestible 25-minute blocks. Gamify your learning by teaching difficult concepts to a study group that forces active engagement. And always tackle that hardest subject first when your cognitive energy is at its absolute peak.
Curios leaves us with a final, empowering stance here. You absolutely have the power to retrain your brain for deep work. Taking back your cognitive focus really just takes a little bit of intentionality. It is entirely within your control to break the loop.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer and leaves you with one final, provocative challenge right now. Are you going to keep scrolling to the next piece of content, or are you going to put the device down and finally let yourself get bored? The choice is yours. Thanks for learning with us.